Well, it's March 6th. The New Orleans Pelicans with 12 games over 500 after that whitewashing of the Toronto Raptors last night. Did y'all see that? It's crazy. Just beat them like a drum. Beat them, was winning by 10. Walk out of the room, they come back, they're winning by 20. It's only 6 weeks to the playoffs, yet we have sort of ignored our hometown NBA team here. That ends today because we are about to bring in one of our favorite people in David Grubb to talk about the Pelicans. Maybe a little Saints mixed in. We'll have a fun extra point as well. Also, Spencer the Guru is here for the Fantasy Roundup. Pat show once again. It's all coming up next on the Dattitude podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, New Orleans? And hello to all my friends elsewhere, everywhere out there who have been singing for days. Rain, rain, go away, come back again when the Saints begin to play. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to cry this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about a team that actually knows how to win, at least this year. The Pelicans, that's coming up. I think I actually saw the sun anywhere. Anyway, I was looking through the fog. Somewhere out in the distance, it was out there, I believe. I think that was the sun anyway. This is Dattitude, episode number 211 for Wednesday, March the 6th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Derry. Whether you're watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or listening to the podcast, as always, I thank you for being a part of the show. And before we get started, you're not supposed to do this, but don't pay attention to this North Star that I have here. I don't know what happened. Before I got on the show here. So that's all you're going to look at now. I'm telling you not to look at it, so you're definitely going to look at it. That's who I am. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to get involved in the show today, David Grubb coming up, you can join in by typing in your question on Facebook or X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it, YouTube. If you're listening after the fact, you can send me a comment or question to jderry@theadvocate.com. And a reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page and click the little bell. I don't know where it is. It might be this way. It might be, I don't know, wherever it is. Receive notifications when we go on the air live. Again, as I said, in just a few minutes, I'm going to bring in David Grubb, who is the CEO of Hard in the Paint Media. He also hosts the Bird Calls podcast, along with our own Christian Clark here at NOLA.com. He is our go-to guy when we want to talk about the Pelicans. No slight on my friend Gus Cattingill, who is my Cubby fan comrade, but he's super busy this time. We'll talk to him in the summer. We'll probably talk about baseball. Who knows? Before we bring in David, though, y'all know how I like to bring my personal life into the show at times, and there was a thing this morning that just kind of, it just makes me shake my head. Sometimes I think my wife thinks I'm like, I don't know, 10 years old. Okay. She lays out everything for the kids because she usually leaves before the kids go to school. So she lays out everything. God bless her. I'm glad that she does it. But sometimes I think that she thinks that if she doesn't do it exactly, have this out 1 through 8, that the kids are not gonna eat before they go to school. They're gonna be hungry. They're not going to have a book at school. I'm not sure what. This morning, the latest thing is for the little one likes to eat her frozen pancakes. So she literally, my wife, puts out the frozen pancakes and writes on the plate 1 minute with a heart. As if I wouldn't know how long am I supposed to put these things in for 16 minutes? They might miss I don't know. I mean, that's where we are in life now. We're coming to where I have to have written on a plate how long the pancakes are going. And I just, that's where, you know what, let's bring in David before I really get super sad. I mean, I don't know. David Grubb, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. The bar is low at your house. Yeah, it seems like the bar is pretty low at your house.
It really is. I mean, I need instructions now on how long to put pancakes in the microwave. Do you need instructions to put for that?
Yeah, I mean, you wrap the towel around the pancakes after you take them out of the plastic wrap. You put a little water on top just to make sure that they don't dry out. In a minute usually does it.
Well, luckily the kids went to school this morning. That they're fed, and so they can
Survived.
actually learn. They can learn what to do. Learn in school today. Let's learn a little bit about the New Orleans Pelicans this morning, David. 37-25 now. They have been inching their way up the standings. They've played very well. 41-point victory last night. But yet, I want you to tell me why there's just something missing. And I don't want to be greedy because we've been waiting for this team kind of to take this step. You and I have been talking about this for a few years now. They're kind of where we want them to be, but yet there's still something missing. I want you to tell me what it is and why for me to get over that.
Well, it's hard to get over it because I think that there are ways that we look at sports, and as a fan, you're trying to stay in the present. You want to enjoy the ride while it's going on, and overall, this season has been a really good ride for the Pelicans. They haven't had that kind of extended winning streak that you look for out of a great team. That 9, 10, 12 game in a row. You saw Boston just came off an 11-game winning streak. You've seen teams have those. The Pelicans' longest winning streak this year is 4 games. But what they've done is they've avoided the long dips that we've seen from this team, usually due to injury over the last several years. They've not had those 8 to 10 game losing streaks that they've become famous for. So on a night-to-night basis, I think, the New Orleans Pelicans are a team capable of beating anybody in the NBA anywhere on a night-to-night basis. But on a 7-game basis in the postseason, and there are some flaws that I think that can be exploited.
How do they get rid of those flaws? Do they get rid of those flaws? Are they good enough to overcome those flaws?
Well, the first one is you've got to have the best player in the series, every series, to win a championship. Pelicans don't have that. I think Zion Williamson at times can be the best player on the floor, but he's your only player capable of really being that for multiple games. So I think that's something you can't correct this year. To win a championship, you've got to have a top 5 player in the NBA. Pelicans currently don't have that. The other thing is I think you want to be a dominant home team. The one thing about the Pelicans, they've been great on the road this year, but they've kind of struggled at home, only 18 home wins. They're behind their pace of where they were a year ago in home wins. You can't do anything about that. And then the third thing is they can't get any bigger.
That's true.
That have a lot of size. They struggle with teams that are really long, and they're not going to get any taller by the end of this season.
Though I will. All that being said, it's been a little bit since we've talked, but the last time we talked, your tone was definitely different. Frustration. I think the frustration at least is gone. I think that last year was an interesting year. Just like as a player, sophomores seem to have the slumps. And Willie Green, I think, sort of had this kind of slump last year where he really seems like he's getting into it now. I think he's really starting to feel it now. He feels like he's a part of all this, like he belongs here. And now I get that confidence back from Willie Green again.
You absolutely see it. Willie Green, I think, understands what the identity of his team is. He understands their pulse. He gets, for the most part, how to communicate with his guys. There's some things, again, that he has no control over. He has no control over guys' health, and he has no control over the makeup of their roster. But with what he has, it seems that Willie has a really good understanding of his guys. There's still some decisions that I think fans, at times will question his rotations, things like that. But again, 30-year coach, still kind of figuring this group out. I mean, again, you only had Zion on the floor, we know, less than 30 games last year. You're going to probably have your stars together for 60 games each this season. So it's a big change. And the biggest thing that you wanted to see on the path to becoming a great NBA team is becoming a very good regular season team. And right now, the Pelicans are a very good regular season team.
They really are. And you bring up Zion. And one thing we kind of wondered, I think, going into this season was how were they going to try to stretch out Zion and keep him healthy? And I think, look, the detractors are going to say whatever they want to say. Now, he hasn't been he hasn't been that player numbers wise that I think a lot of us expected him to be. But the fact that they're keeping him on the floor, I love his emotion. I really do. I think that even though the numbers may not say it, it's the best season that he's had so far in his young career. And I think that he can grow from this and learn a lot from this. I'm really happy with where he is right now.
You can tell that finally, not since that season, his second season with Stan when he
Right.
played over 60 games and he was putting up 27 a night. We've not seen Zion get to do this on a nightly basis and adjust
Right.
to both how the league is going to play him and how he's going to play the rest of the league. And so we're seeing these situations now where he's discovering what it takes to play a team 3 times in a season. He's rarely done that, to seeing the same look from a team and learned how to adjust to those players. So the mental part of the game is finally starting to catch up for him. Defensively, I think he's gotten better this year than we've ever seen him. He's been more active in blocking shots, but more importantly, his hands. Zion is never going to be a guy who gives you 12, 15 rebounds. He's not going to block 3 shots a game. He's only 6'6". But when his hands are active and he's in the passing lanes, creating turnovers and those types of things, making it difficult for bigs to turn and score around the bucket, then that's when he's really at his best defensively. And we're starting to see more of that out of Zion. So we're getting his 30-plus minutes a night. We're not getting high turnover numbers, which was really critical of him in his early part of his career. And we're starting to see how he complements other players on the floor. I think there's still some tweaking, especially between him and Brandon Ingram, that either needs to take place or is going to be the ultimate decision for this franchise. But Zion is showing you, he's worthy of the position that he was drafted in.
And David, also, I think a huge part that is underrated about what Zion is bringing to this team. There's a lot of kind of, I don't want to say laid back, but they're not these vocal, loud, boisterous, in your face kind of players. And I think that the rest of the team can kind of feed off of what Zion's energy. And I think he brings a certain energy that this team so desperately has needed in the past. And I think that's really going to help them going forward.
When he's confident, that trickles down to everybody else because, in any sport, when you've got somebody who's just a blunt force object that can just get what they want, whether it's the power hitter in baseball, whether it's the wide receiver who could blow the top off the roof and catching a pass like a Randy Moss, or the running back who could take it 90 yards. When you've got that player in basketball who could just, when they decide they want to get 2 points, it's dang near impossible to stop them from getting 2 points. That's an incredible advantage to have. And I think with Zion, people see Zion get into that mode where he's going downhill and he's either scoring or creating opportunities for everyone else. Yeah, it's really easy to get energized off of that. And I think he feeds off of the energy of other guys. When Herb Jones is getting steals, when Trey Murphy is getting dunks or shooting threes, Zion feeds off of that energy too. So I think it's a real reciprocal relationship between him and the role players, especially on that team.
So you're saying that Zion is the TO of the New Orleans Pelicans. Get your popcorn ready.
Every team needs a showstopper, right?
Absolutely.
Championship teams, if you're going to be a winner, you got to have a showstopper, and he's that. He's box office.
What is the limit for this team? All right, we look at we got the numbers on the screen here. They're 5th. They're only 6 games back now. There's only 6 weeks left, so I don't think there's enough time to climb into the top 3 or anything. Do they need to climb into the top 3? I mean, I don't necessarily think that if they get into a 4-5 matchup with the Clippers, I don't think that's the worst spot for them because I think they can beat a Minnesota. They've already shown that they can. I think you're better off playing a Minnesota in the first round. Now, that's assuming the T-Wolves stay up there. I think you just want to avoid Denver, right?
I think the hard thing for the Pelicans in any of these is that we don't know how consistent they're going to be at home. Right. That's the hard part. We've seen them win games on the road this year. We've seen them win at Minnesota. We've seen them win in Oklahoma City. We've seen them win at Denver, before. So I think that they could be competitive against any one of those teams. The big difference is, the Pelicans don't have experience. So I think, you'd like a matchup against another team that doesn't have a lot of experience. Oklahoma City in that regard, as good as they've been, That's a team that's never been in the playoffs,
Right.
really.
Right.
So that's a team that you want that similar level of pressure. I think if you go up against a Minnesota, you're dealing with the Mike Conley and a Rudy Gobert and a coaching staff and Chris Finch that has been in these situations at least. And the Pelicans have struggled at home. And I think Minnesota's game defensively travels for the playoffs. So there's some things there that you don't like. But I think I like the Denver matchup for some reason. The Pelicans have always played Denver very well. And I like the Oklahoma City matchup because the Pelicans have played them historically well. The Clippers, that experience, and I think Tyronn Lue is probably the best coach in the Western Conference right now. Greg Popovich obviously has the resume, but right now I would say Tyronn Lue is probably the best coach in the West. And I think that Clippers matchup at 4-5, I'd almost rather be 6 and take on Denver in the first round than the Clippers.
Well, obviously, still a long way to go, and you see how tight those numbers are. 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, they literally could finish anywhere to me from. Wouldn't surprise me if they finished 4th. Wouldn't surprise me if they finished 8th or anywhere in between. So, again, with 6 weeks left, anything can happen. But we're going to look at their schedule in just a minute. But I know you're not really a betting guy, and I don't necessarily want to talk about the betting aspect of it. But 75-1 to win the NBA championship, that seems like kind of a. If you're talking betting terms, you're talking about value. Because I think people, you can say all you want. Oh, that's crazy. You can't bet on the Pelicans. I mean, 70. But 75-1, if they play the season out 75 times the rest of the way, they're going to win the championship one of those times, more than one, in my opinion. I just think this team has, you talk about they don't have the top 5 guy that you really need to win a championship, but you know as well as I do, and you've seen it, if a team gets hot and you're like, oh, I don't want to play that team. I think the Pelicans, if they can get things together and really get on a run and give themselves the confidence, they could be that team that no one wants to play in the playoffs.
One thing about the West is that it's going to be hugely matchup driven. Whereas the East, it looks, Boston just looks so much better than everybody in the East. And maybe you think Milwaukee can figure it out. But nobody else in the East do you really think of as a legitimate contender because Philly's done without Joel Embiid. The rest of these teams don't have that guy. But in the West, you got to figure your top 6, any one of those teams could make the conference final. Then it's just dependent on who are you playing in that final, whether or not you make the NBA finals. And so the Pelicans, there are some matchups, that are very favorable to them. That are very favorable. It depends on who upsets whom in the playoffs. Is it inconceivable that they make an NBA Finals? No, we've seen stranger things.
Absolutely.
We've seen 8 teams make 8 seeds make the NBA Finals. And this Pelicans team is still top 10 in the NBA, both offensive, defense, and that's usually a profile that will get you deep in the playoffs. So I think, it's not inconceivable. It's just, it's unlikely. It's unlikely that a team goes from nowhere to the championship.
And that's why it's 28-1 to make the NBA Finals, 75-1 to win. But again, like you said, we've seen stranger things that happen. And to me, it just seems like there's value there. And if you're looking for a team, an outlier, a team that's not the Celtics, a team that's not the Nuggets, a team that's not in the top echelon, the Bucks, you're looking for a team outside of that realm that can win it. I really think that the Pels are maybe that value type team. We'll see. If you look at their schedule coming up, to me, obviously it's a little tougher than it's been, but you still have winnable games there. You're going on the road. You're still on the road. You got Philly coming up, Atlanta. You're playing 2 more teams in the East. Then you come home, play another one in Cleveland. That's could be a tough matchup. And then to me, that March 15th date at home, the Clippers. I'm looking forward to that game, David. You talk about the home semi-struggles. To me, that might be the game that shows us what we need to know about their playoff prowess.
You take this 3-game road trip that they're on now, and they got the big win yesterday. You get Philly and Atlanta. And then, like you said, that middle section with Cleveland, the Clippers, and Portland. And then that final 3, Brooklyn, Orlando, and Miami. If you take 2 out of 3 in each of those groups, you're in good shape.
Agreed.
You're in good shape. So I think, you look at this one and you say, maybe they struggle at Philly. Philly's a really tough place to win. And the Sixers are a good team, maybe. But I like that their chances in both Philly and Atlanta. I like both of those games. Cleveland is really hot. That's the second best team in the Eastern Conference. They just beat the Celtics. So you have to like that Cleveland is going to give the Pelicans a hard game. So are the Clippers. But you got to win those at home. You know what I mean? Those are games that you have to win, especially that Portland game, a team under 500. Brooklyn, a team that season is basically over. Orlando, a team you struggled against. Let's not forget the Pelicans have not won in Orlando in 4 years. So that's not a game they want to take lightly, and neither is going to Miami, which we know was a very physical game in New Orleans last time. But if you get 2 out of 3 out of each of those groupings, that's where you want to be right now for the Pelicans. It's just avoid those dips because everything is so close right now. If you have a bad week where you lose 2 out of 3 or you lose 3 out of 4, now you're setting yourself up for trouble. But if the Pelicans can just stay 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3, then they're in really good shape.
The playoff meter is about to take flight, so to say. Before we move on, and I do want to ask you a question or two about the Saints. I want to talk about one question about the NBA West, and there's a team's name that you don't see in that top 8. It's the one we always talk about. Are the Los Angeles Lakers done?
Yeah. I think the Lakers are done for the foreseeable future. I think they made a huge mistake that when Golden State asked about LeBron James, they should have made that deal. Make that deal. Like whatever Golden State was offering, get off the LeBron James train now because it's not carrying you anymore. And I get, people forget that the Lakers are one of the last family businesses in the NBA. Most teams are owned by giant corporations. The Lakers are owned by the Buss family, and they've got to sell tickets. And I think that's been the reason primarily that they've held on to LeBron is that in the absence of Kobe Bryant, in his passing, they have not had a star to turn the franchise over to. Anthony Davis is not that guy. You can't make him your franchise player and have people go, we're going to go pay to see AD tonight. They're not doing it. Even if he's playing, 70 plus games, he's on pace to play 70 games this season. It doesn't matter. They need LeBron James in LA. But I think the mistake, basketball-wise, is this is the last time he's got value.
I agree.
At 41, 42, and he walks away and goes to play with his son, there's no value for the Lakers. You could have gotten something right now. Instead, you're going to be a mediocre team, for the duration of his career.
I'm the furthest thing from a Lakers fan, but it's kind of sad to see in a way. It's kind of like if you're a baseball fan, you can hate the Yankees all you want, but when they went through all those years where they stunk, it's bad for baseball. And actually, I think again, I don't like the Lakers at all. I root for them to lose when I watch them play, but at the same time, it's bad for basketball. I think when they stink.
It's fun to kick the Lakers when they're down.
Yes, it is.
But it's more fun to beat them when they're good. Because that's what really shuts up Lakers fans. Lakers fans, when they're down, they just go 17 world championships. But when they're good and you beat them, what can they say?
It's kind of like Cowboys fans.
Mm-hmm.
All they talking about the rings. I'm like, yeah, but a lot of you weren't even alive the last time they won a ring. Stop talking.
Nope.
You can't do that. All right, before I let you go, I do want to ask your thoughts on the Saints and as the NFL draft is coming up in just 7 weeks, I believe. Your thoughts on, look, I've made it clear. I've made my thoughts known that if we're having a draft show here at NOLA.com, as we did last year, a live draft show. And I'm telling the people out there now, if the Saints draft anything but a tackle in the first round, they'll want to tune into NOLA.com because I am going to go off. So I want to see if you share the same thoughts with me where they need to go in the first round.
I think you absolutely have to rebuild this offensive line or the defensive line, whichever has the best value at the position you're taking. It starts with that line. The Saints don't get any pass rush. Last season, they were one of the worst in the NFL up front, and this is a defense that does not utilize its linebackers in the blitzes. So you better be getting something from your front four. Cam Jordan's at the end of his leash. So, at the end of his career. So let's see. You've got to find that guy. Peyton Turner has not become that guy. You don't have a defensive end. Offensive side, like you said, who's the stalwart now? Who's the guy you're betting on? Because Eric McCoy, rebounded and had a decent year. But Ryan Ramczyk, his career might be over, and the rest of your line is journeymen and guys that you're hoping can make it.
Yeah, when you have to use Andrus Peat at left tackle, that kind of says, my son calls me yesterday, and I like to bring him up because it just kind of shows the mentality of the average Joe fan, a 25-year-old know-it-all. He should be the GM of the Saints. But he calls me yesterday. He goes, "You really think they should draft a tackle? I just think they need another wide receiver." I'm like, "Stop playing Madden. Put the game down. This is not Madden. Derek Carr's not going to be able to throw." I know what you think about Derek Carr, so I'm not going to even get into that. But, he has to have time to be able to throw to anyone, and he's not going to be able to have time. Don't matter who you got. You could have the next Jerry Rice out there. You could have Randy Moss out there. But if it's 1-2, boom, it doesn't matter.
Look, Saints are going to emulate what the San Francisco 49ers created on offense. It starts with that line. Like the 49ers have one of the best offensive lines in the league. That's why they could go through 3 quarterbacks in a season and continue to operate the way that they do, because their receivers block, their linemen are dominant, their tight ends block. Everything in that offense is about being physical, and that's not something you would have associated. If there's one word that you would not associate with the Saints offense last year, it's physical.
There's zero doubt about that. 100%. Last question. I know you're a part of MLBBro.com. Give me your baseball prediction. Who do you like as we get started here? NL, AL. What's going to be my World Series this come October?
I think in the AL, you have to start again with the Rangers.
Yeah, I agree.
That offense is fantastic. Their pitching staff has gotten deeper. That's still, I think the West is still the best division. As far as the top teams, while the American League East may be deeper, the better teams are at the top of the West. So I really like the Rangers and the Astros again in the American League. I don't like any of the teams in the East because none of them seem complete. As a guy who's been a Yankee fan my entire life, the Yankees can't pitch. I know that they've got more hitting, but I just don't believe in their pitching. And I would say the same for the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. All those teams in the East, and the Orioles to an extent too, they don't have enough. In the National League, it starts and ends with the Dodgers and the Braves.
100%.
It's the Dodgers and the Braves.
It's boring. Come on.
I mean, what are we talking about? It's the Dodgers or the Braves?
Baseball's kind of got like the NBA had been for so long. I think it's better now. It's not. There's more teams entering the mix. I love seeing the Nuggets win it last year because it was someone different. And Jokic was someone that was different, I guess. But baseball's becoming what the NBA kind of has been. They need to figure that out.
I'm interested to see what Bryce Harper does at first base.
Yeah, I'm
very interested in this.
Especially if
I mean, the Phillies are a sleeper because I think that, for them, it's about health. They swing the bat. They
definitely swing the bat. They definitely do.
But it's about their health. Can they be healthy all season long?
David Grubb is the CEO of Hard in the Paint Media. He hosts the Bird Calls podcast. Check him out at DM Grubb on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. That's on you. You can call it X, call it Twitter, whatever makes you feel good these days. David Grubb, thank you, my friend, for joining us here on the Dattitude podcast.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
See you soon. All right, we are going to bring in just a moment, we're going to bring in Spencer the Guru because it is time for the Fantasy Roundup, but we can't do it without his intro because we miss him here. We miss the intro. We miss the Fantasy Roundup intro. Here it is. Do you feel more comfortable now, Spencer, that we got the intro for you and, everything is, trying to get back to make you feel right?
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, Jim. Yeah, glad to be on here on Dattitude. Feels fresh, feels right. So, yeah, let's get into it, man.
We're trying to do some things a little bit different here. And Spencer the Guru Urquhart is going to be with us every Wednesday here for the Fantasy Roundup show, just as we've done on Tuesdays before. It's going to be on Wednesday, at least for right now. And today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about 60% NFL and how some of these free agents and where they might land. And then we're going to finish it off with obviously talking about fantasy baseball drafts right around the corner. We'll probably delve more into fantasy baseball going next week and the week after as we get really close to fantasy baseball drafts. But, I saw you in the green room. You were talking about you like the Orioles and the Phillies could be dangerous. We're going to get into that in just a minute because I am going to pick your brain on baseball. But let's start off with some of these free agents and some news this week, Spencer, that first off, Saquon Barkley, the Giants announced that they are not going to tag him. And so he's probably going to be moving on, although you see the Giants plus 550 to be the team that he could go to next. Well, he's already with them. But some of these odds, Gabe Henderson is just drooling right now. Texans minus 200. Talk about some of the impact he could have if he went to the Texans or even the Chargers or Cowboys. But Texans, obviously the favorite right now.
For sure, yeah. Texans would be a very good fit because they're an offense that's really on the rise. I feel like any of these three would be a huge upgrade over the Giants because let's be real, the Giants offense is a dumpster fire right now. Darren Waller thinking about retirement, Daniel Jones, who knows if he'll be healthy. So to me, Saquon, he needs to get out of Dodge as far as going back to the Giants. He reportedly wants to stay in New York, but I hope that report's wrong because I want to see him on a much better offense. And the Texans would definitely fit that bill, and they're flush with cap space. So I would think that the odds are spot on here. If I had to predict, I would think he'd land over there because I think they'll be able to sell him on the fact that they're a rising team and that he could actually win football games over there.
In case you're wondering, he is plus 10,000 to go to the New Orleans Saints, which means it's 100 to 1 and it ain't that high. I mean, that's not worth. Don't put $1 on it to try to win $100. It ain't gonna happen. Not coming to New Orleans. And just in case you were wondering, but I don't know. All right, teams that could affect, free agents that could affect the New Orleans Saints because they could go within the division, and that's Kirk Cousins is number one on that list. You look at the favorite to land Kirk Cousins, and he's not the only player, the only quarterback that is favored to go to the Falcons, which is weird. There are two players that are favored to go to the two quarterbacks favored to go to the Falcons, but the overwhelming favorite is Kirk Cousins minus 225. I still think he's going to go back to the Vikings because it makes the most sense, Spencer, but it sure would be interesting. And you talked about in your email, and we were talking about what we're going to talk about today, what kind of impact Kirk Cousins could have on this Falcons. I think it would be a game changer.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Falcons realize that if they really want to take control of the NFC South, and they're going to need not just a quarterback, but a proven quarterback. And I feel like Kirk Cousins fits that bill. He's a proven winner in Minnesota. He hadn't really had much playoff success, but he's led them to a lot of winning seasons. And I'm thinking Atlanta, if they can sign him, will take a huge step forward with the new offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson. And I'm thinking that Drake London and Kyle Pitts will finally be able to maximize their potential that we were all hoping they would under Arthur Smith. But as we all could see last year, and I kind of had to eat my words because I was thinking, in year 3, Arthur Smith might be able to figure some things out and, get Atlanta's offense going because they had so much talent, but he just squandered it. Even Bijan Robinson didn't hit his potential because of Arthur Smith's bad play call. And so they have nowhere to go but up. And if they can bring in Kirk Cousins, that's bad news for Saints fans because he's better than Derek Carr.
I had Kyle Pitts last year in fantasy thinking he was going to take that next step. I don't know what I was thinking with their quarterback situation, but it would be interesting if Kirk Cousins does go there. I think a guy like Kyle Pitts might be the biggest benefactor in the entire NFL. He would just leap up fantasy drafts, I think, come this September if Cousins does go there.
Agreed. Yeah, him in London for sure. And they'll probably bring in some other guys that Cousins is familiar with on cheap deals. So, yeah, keep an eye. Maybe Adam Thielen if the Panthers move on from him. Him and Cousins worked together before. So,
there's another guy that is favored to go to the Atlanta Falcons. How about Justin Fields? Now, again, I still have this feeling that so I can't be right about both of them. I think that the Falcons will probably get either Fields or Cousins. If not, they're going to be left dangling in the wind. I mean, maybe go after Russell Wilson. We'll talk about him in a minute. But Justin Fields right now favored to go to the Falcons, just plus 125, so it's not an overwhelming favorite like it is for Cousins. But you look at some of these other numbers, Steelers at plus 250, Bears to go back to the Bears where I think he belongs. I'm not convinced that they don't just hold on to Justin Fields and trade that number 1 pick and really get something for it, plus 275. And then the last one on this list, I find that super interesting. If he would leave the Bears and go to the Vikings, that to me would just be fun. Some other teams on this list that I didn't list, the Raiders at plus 650, the Broncos and Giants at plus 1,400. I don't think he's going either one of those. So I think it's one of these 4 teams. But Justin Fields, to me, is probably the most interesting of the bunch.
Right. Yeah, I think the Raiders could be very much a sleeper team here because I believe their new OC was Fields' former OC with the Bears, Luke Getsy. So I think the Raiders are the team. If I had to bet this, I'd put a little bit on them. I don't see the Vikings because it's interdivisional because Fields will get traded. I definitely think the Bears will be able to trade him. It's not like they'll have to release him. So I don't think the Vikings, even if they lose Kirk Cousins, I feel like the Bears are going to want to do anything but trade him to a division rival. But he could stay there. I doubt it, though. They seem locked in on Caleb Williams from what the reports are saying. And then the Steelers, yeah, I mean, Caleb is kind of a diva so far, but he's got the talent. And if you have that number 1 overall pick and can take a potential generational talent, you kind of have to do it. And then the teams at the top there, the Falcons and Steelers. If the Falcons go Cousins, though, the Steelers, they're reportedly out on a quarterback upgrade. Their GM recently endorsed Kenny Pickett, but I think that very well could be a bluff.
Smoke and mirrors.
Exactly, because you know what tells me it's a bluff? That the odds didn't change. They're still favored to sign Russell Wilson, and then they're still in the mix for Fields. So that tells me that the GM was bluffing, that they're definitely still in the mix for these quarterbacks. So if I had to predict as of now, I'd probably say Cousins to Atlanta and Fields to Pittsburgh. I think he'd be a good fit in Arthur Smith's run-heavy offense because we all know Fields can run well.
I agree. We'll see how that goes coming up. Last one in football that I want to talk about, Russell Wilson. You brought up the Steelers. These odds have kind of gone down. He was like minus 250 before. These odds have kind of come down a little bit. So as you said, I think that endorsement of Kenny Pickett has kind of changed things for Russell Wilson, but still minus 135 to go to Pittsburgh. Plus 250. I think the Raiders would be an excellent spot for him, but can he rejuvenate his career? You see Falcons third on the list. Vikings obviously going to need a quarterback if Cousins moves on. Where does Russell Wilson fit in best?
Yeah, I think the Vikings would be the best fit for resurrecting his career. If I'm Russell Wilson, I'd want to go there and work with Kevin O'Connell and have 2 strong weapons to work with, an elite receiver in Justin Jefferson and a rising star in Jordan Addison. And when he gets back healthy, a star tight end in TJ Hawkinson. Right. So to me, if you're Russ, that's where you want to go. Although the Raiders wouldn't be a bad landing spot because you got Devontae Adams there, Jacoby Myers, probably bring Josh Jacobs back. So I think either of those spots would be good for him because I'm thinking Cousins to Atlanta, Fields to Pittsburgh. So that would rule those 2 out. So Raiders, Vikings. I think the Vikings, I think people are kind of sleeping on them because a lot of people assume they're going to bring Kirk Cousins back. But I think Atlanta's going to throw a lot of money at Kirk Cousins.
I think you're right.
And we all know Kirk Cousins likes to chase the money. He got those 2 franchise tags from Washington and has always made sure he got paid by the Vikings. So I don't see him taking a hometown discount. He's the kind of guy that likes to continue going up, I guess, for himself and also for the players union. So I would think Russ.
Drew Brees chased the money too. Did I say that out loud? I'm not supposed to say that's blasphemy. Don't talk about Drew Brees like that. All right, let's move on to baseball before I get egged. Someone's going to find out where I live and throw something through the door here. All right, baseball, and I saw you back in the green room talking about you like the Orioles. You think the Phillies could be dangerous. I mean, the Phillies offense certainly is dangerous, and they signed Zach Wheeler to this ridiculous contract the other day. So I agree with you. I think the Phillies are one of those teams to watch. But when you talk about the fantasy aspect of it, and this is a 5x5 Roto rankings, you go through your rankings here and pick out a couple players that we certainly should be watching. By the way, there's no doubt that Acuna is the number one player in fantasy. But I think he's one, and then Mookie Betts is like way down, like a distant two. You got to pick Acuna, assuming he stays healthy. I don't know if he can do what he did again last year, but he's ridiculous. So, but pick out a couple of players that you're kind of hoping to get. You kind of hope that they fall to you, maybe.
For sure. Yeah, I'll just address Acuna real quick. He did suffer a minor knee injury recently, but I'm not worried about that. It wasn't anything that's going to cause him to miss time. So if you have that 101 pick, that first overall, you still got to take him. He's by far the best player right now. So probably going to come down a little bit from last year. But even if he does, he should still finish first overall. So as far as other guys, though, I really like Freddie Freeman this year. I feel like he's getting slept on because they announced he's going to bat second in their order, sandwiched between Betts and Ohtani. Ohtani will be third there, and that's just going to really help him do even better. He's already had career best batting averages with the Dodgers, and I think this year he'll have probably career best in runs scored for sure, and maybe even RBIs too, because he'll be batting behind Mookie. So I think he's on pace for another strong season. And he had a career high in stolen bases last year, and batting second, he'll probably steal a good amount of bases again. He's got some speed there. Not many people would think of him for stolen bases. He didn't really do it with the Braves, but with the Dodgers, he's been running too, and he's still got power. And for those in points leagues, he's really good because he gets a lot of doubles. So it's a total bases are the thing there. So he's good in whatever format. And I find he falls a little bit in these drafts. I had a draft over the weekend. I had the 4th overall pick. And I was like, man, I just want someone that's reliable, that plays every day. And Freeman's that guy. So I took him a little higher than his consensus ranking. But I just felt like he's getting slept on there, I just feel like he's someone that in this any format you got to take. And then in 5x5, man, Julio Rodriguez is just
and you say Julio Rodriguez. Gabe Henderson is in the green room, and he says, and for him to say this, it's saying something. He likes Julio Rodriguez over Kyle Tucker. And the Astros fan, if the Astros fan's saying he wants J-Rod over Kyle Tucker, that's kind of saying something.
Wow, yeah, that was tough for me. I gave the slight edge to Tucker because the Astros are the better lineup. And they're both guys that, I mean, these top 5, this is a special year. And I feel like all these top 5 have potential for 30 seasons. And so I feel like Julio's a guy that, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that Mookie Betts was second base eligible, shoot, I might have Tucker and Julio above him, but then Bobby Witt's also really good and shortstop eligible. There's just less infielders than outfielders, so that if you're an infielder and you're putting up similar numbers, I'll give you a slight edge. But still, I mean, it's top 5. If you have a top 5, even 6 pick with Freeman, Corbin Carroll's really good. This is a good year.
I was going to ask you. I wonder
about if you have a high pick.
I wonder about Corbin Carroll. I worry about him being kind of a one-year wonder. I know that's a little strong, but to think that, of course, he could take the next step and be even better than he was last year. But that just seems like kind of that. I am scared to draft him in the first round, even though his numbers from last year certainly warrant it.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, you can make a case that you might want to take Juan Soto over him going to the Yankees. He should see a spike in numbers, as well as you got Jordan and Aaron Judge down there, who they could very well finish top 5, but they always have trouble staying healthy. It seems like they're both guys that if they're healthy, they could hit 60 bombs, but can they ever stay healthy? That's why I've got Matt Olson ranked slightly above them, because Olson's the kind of guy that even if his numbers come down some from his career year last year, he should still put up really strong numbers in that elite Braves lineup, and he's someone that's been reliable health-wise.
Well, Spencer the Guru Urquhart, you can find him on bet.noah.com, and you can find him here doing the Fantasy Roundup on the Dattitude podcast every Wednesday morning. We'll see you next Wednesday, Spence.
Yeah, for sure, Jim. Enjoyed getting back in the loop here. Yeah, I'm excited to make this a weekly thing.
We're going to have fun with it as we get closer to the baseball drafts. We'll see you next week. Okay, and we're going to move on to the extra point here as we finish out the show. And I had a tough one with this one. Talking about Arch Manning, and we were talking yesterday in kind of a pre-production meeting about what the extra point might be for today. And Gabe Henderson had a great one, and it's about Arch Manning and him opting out of the EA Sports, the big college football game. video game. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're old like me and you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, it's you know what Madden is. You know what the Madden, well, the college football game is getting bigger and bigger every year. And Arch Manning has decided that according to ESPN, there have been 10,000 or so college football players. About 87% of the college football players have opted into this deal from EA Sports, which it brings these players $600 each, and they get a free video game. What's not to love about that? So when I heard that Arch Manning opted out of this, my first reaction was, you know, it's getting kind of old that he and his family continue to shield this kid from the world. And as a former prep writer and one that's still in the prep world, so to speak, doing play-by-play, by the way, it just so coincidentally happens. I didn't mean this for this way at all. It just so happens that I'm doing Newman baseball this afternoon, or at least I think I am. You know, but so it's kind of weird that my first reaction was kind of to be negative about Arch, but then I went through and I read through this and I started thinking about it, and I dug a little deeper, and I think I'm on Arch's side now. And I'm not just saying that, I really do, because the two big things here backing him up are, backing the Mannings up anyway, are first, the family says that they want to wait to do anything along these lines until, quote, he is the man, which he is not. Ewers is still going to be the quarterback at Texas. He's going to be the starting quarterback. Arch is going to be on the sideline again. So I kind of understand that, but that wasn't the main thing. I didn't realize this, but he is yet, according to ESPN anyway, has yet to take any NIL money. So opting into this deal and getting this $600 and the free copy of the video game, considering he hasn't signed on with anyone else, he obviously doesn't need the money or even maybe want the NIL money yet. It's hard to see him doing that for just that little bit of money. And I get that a lot of you are probably out there saying, it's more than the money. It's more than the money. He's not being but is it really? Is it really more than the money? I mean, these days, pretty much everything is about the money. It's the reason why players enter the draft early. Hell, in some cases, it's the reason why some players are actually staying in college now with these exorbitant NIL deals. So I kind of get where he's coming from here. So again, you can even change this stubborn mind sometimes. I went into it thinking I was going to kind of be, poke a little fun at Arch. But again, once you go through it and you read about it, maybe it makes sense for him. We'll see. Our extra point every week is we're trying to have fun every week. Every show here, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we're trying to have fun with it. It could be a lesson in history. It could be my take on something. It could be a shout out. I didn't want to shout out the pancakes that I had to make this morning, so we went with Arch Manning. Hope you like that. If you don't agree with me, feel free to share your take. If you agree with me, go ahead, email me, jderry@theadvocate.com. By the way, if you want to be a part of this show, if you want to sponsor the show in any way, we have a title sponsor. We have segment sponsors such as this Extra Point. We have the Fantasy Roundup. We have other segments that are going to debut soon here on Dattitude. jderry@theadvocate.com, and I'll get with you and we can talk about it. And you can write me about anything else that your heart may desire, because that is going to wrap it up for this Wednesday morning. I want to thank my guests, David Grubb and Spencer the Guru Urquhart. We hope that you can join us on Friday morning. We'll have Eric Asher of the newly branded 106.1 The Ticket, and we're going to talk about the Saints, Pelicans, LSU, whatever else our little hearts and our big bodies desire. A reminder to subscribe to the Dattitude podcast. The Dattitude YouTube page is the most important one. That's the one we really want you to subscribe to. Click the little bell. You can receive notifications when we go on the air live, which is right now, 11 a.m. on Mondays, 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. on Fridays. All shows live, at least as of now. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, G-O-O-G, Google, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcast. And you can find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. We will see you on Friday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.